So we all know that the traditional capital markets are bigger than $1 quadrillion. That's 1,000 trillion for those at home. But what if we told you that an insider from Blackrock, an $11 trillion giant, just openly said that Bitcoin is going to replace this $1,000 trillion market? Now, again, we know it sounds crazy, but we have a clip coming directly from a Blackrock insider that we're going to play for you guys right now.
What advice would you give to, sort of the rest of the financial universe that are thinking about getting into this space now?
It's a great question. I think from our lens, it's a very, what I'm going to say is going to be very simple. Executing it is extremely hard. So I recognize that. But to us, it's very basic. You basically have a new set of exposures. Mm-hmm. The real utility in Unlock is to be able to put them in the whole portfolio. And interestingly enough, I think you could turn the telescope around also and say, ultimately, how do you put these capital markets exposures in digital wallets? And how do you go? So if you think about the bridge strategy of this alternate digital asset universe and bringing it to the capital markets, I think it's naive to assume, and this doesn't have to be in a month, but if you look out over time, it's naive to assume that you don't also have to think through how do you bring the traditional capital markets to this alternative universe. And I think both connection points will define the next decade.
I couldn't agree more. And the best example of it, by the way, was the ETFs. So we got all thrown a curveball in the last minute. There were no in-kind creates. And so we were forced to try and figure out how to make old world meet new world, right? And so hopefully in the next version thereof, we're going to have more of a synthesis of those two things. So yeah, you're spot on. I agree with that. So,
dude, I just think people are right now kind of like not eternalizing what these huge asset managers are saying, Opti. I mean, again, it was the guy's a little bit monotone. I don't want to dunk on him too much. But he said Bitcoin's essentially going to come and replace the entire global capital markets. And again, this is $1,000 trillion in size today. And I think a lot of us, Bitcoiners in particular, we're getting just lulled to sleep with this sideways price action. And we're not paying attention to not only what the big boys are saying, but also the supply suffocation that these public companies and even ETFs are creating right now in the space. I think before we get there, Opti, I want your thoughts on that clip from that BlackRock insider.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, first of all, we've been saying for a long time here at Simply Bitcoin, I think everyone on Twitter has been saying something very similar. A lot of the things that BlackRock is saying, it is very interesting when you've been around the block for a long time, because we've been saying these things for years at this point, especially when the ETFs came out. And they even kind of mentioned it when they were just talking in the clip. The host, he was essentially saying, like, when the ETF was launched, we did kind of get blindsided by no in-kind redemptions. But we also knew that when the ETF and the institutional capital came into Bitcoin, then a whole new wave of, quote, smart money. The really expensive, rich suit guys are coming into this space. The really smartest people out there are going to start explaining what Bitcoin is. And I think we're starting to see that. I know there's a lot of concern amongst Bitcoiners whether Larry Fink is actually a Bitcoiner. He's just here for the gains. He's just here for the fees. But it is kind of becoming more convincing over time that BlackRock is here not just for the gains, because obviously that's what they're here for, but secondly, because they are starting to see the writing on the wall. And we've been talking about this for a while. And depending on who you're listening to out there on Twitterverse or even on YouTube, it is becoming very clear that BlackRock themselves are the biggest institutions in the world right now, are looking for lack of better terms, like diversified portfolios. They're looking for alternatives here. Again, if you are these people at the very top, you are probably seeing the same thing that Luke and I and everyone in the chat is seeing. There's something fundamentally either wrong in the system or there's a potential catastrophe on the horizon. And I think this is why BlackRock has sent out their suit coiners, sent out their marketing team to essentially start to shill Bitcoin to everyone, because they're essentially projecting to their clients right now that, hey, look, we don't know what's going to happen. We obviously don't want to essentially yell fire while we're trying to leave the exit door here, but we want to preemptively kind of get our customers and clients familiar with this idea of you need Bitcoin. Remember in the beginning, Luke, I'm pretty sure it was BlackRock. It was definitely a BlackRock report, but they started out with saying something ludicrous, like you need 80% of your assets in Bitcoin. And we were researching this and like, whatever happened to that 80% prediction here, or rather, recommendation of this is how much allocation you should have to Bitcoin. And now they kind of moved it back to like 1, 5, maybe 10% here. So you're starting to see that they are nudging their customers towards Bitcoin, an alternative, decentralized, permissionless, censorship-resistant money, because there is obviously a lot of economic uncertainties in the market right now, whether it's, global crises, whether it's the bond markets blowing up. There is a lot of unknowns right now. And, if you were around for the 2008 crisis, you probably don't want to catch yourself in the same position with your pants down. And now that we have Bitcoin, literally Bitcoin was created after that event. You're kind of at the very least getting your customers, getting the markets familiar with what Bitcoin is so that they can essentially protect themselves, but also so that you can protect your moat here. And again, Larry Fink has been out here basically saying, oh, we're going to 700K soon. So again, the marketing team is here. And they, I think, are getting more bullish as the days come. As the blocks come in, they're like, yo, I really do believe this is going to go absolutely crazy. And so, hey, look, and further, actually, let me just pull up the chart, because it does seem like the suit coiners out there, love the phrase now. I'm gonna constantly use it. Are actually reading the Bitcoin, literature, the Bitcoin data. They're probably on Bitcoin Twitter with us. They might even be anons for all we know. But he's literally saying what Jesse Myers, aka Creases Bitcoin, has been saying on Twitter for a long time. And we've been using this chart on the show. Everyone on Twitter is kind of talking about it as well. This is the trajectory that we're talking about here. Of course, if you aren't familiar with this, you must be new here, because we constantly, all Bitcoiners parade this chart out there, because this is the end game. Again, whether you say Bitcoin is half of every transaction, half of all the value in the world, or you say, hey, we're just going to go towards the gold market cap, the bond market cap, etc., or you're going as bulltard as the BlackRock COO here, saying, hey, it's going to eat up as much of the capital markets as possible. The truth and the facts remain the same. Bitcoin is just 0.2% of global wealth. It's a $2 trillion market cap. And now we have the best marketers out there shilling Bitcoin, talking our bags, and essentially saying what us Bitcoiners have been saying forever. It's just no longer, Luke and I, or Nico and I, or dudes in a hoodie talking about it. It's the guys in the expensive suits out there basically saying what we've been saying forever. There's 1,000 trillion or 1 quadrillion of global capital, and Bitcoin is going to eat a significant chunk of this. So I find it very interesting, Luke, that of course we have these people that are obviously more well-versed with the traditional financial system, essentially embracing Bitcoin, essentially giving us the stamp of approval and saying, hey, yeah, actually, guys, I know we've been kind of saying that Bitcoin, is hacker money, criminal money, but now you're starting to see the headlines. They're saying it's a pivotable macro asset in the world right now. And if it's not a part of your portfolio, you might not make it through the turmoil that we might see on the horizon in the next decade, 2 decades, etc. Because we are, again, seeing a monetary paradigm shift happening in real time. And as we all know here, Bitcoin is going to be at the heart of this. We are seeing, as they said in that clip, the old world collide with the new world, or the analog world collide with the digital world, and they are trying to find bridges to this. Now, are all these products going to work? Is this going to be, a cakewalk? I highly doubt it. We've also, Luke, seen, BlackRock's been talking about tokenizing all the things recently, and it does sound like that's what he was kind of saying there. But one point remains the same. A shit ton of capital is going to get unleashed into Bitcoin. And of course, we're all in it for the tech, guys. I know we're all in it for the tech here, but number has to go up at a certain point. And I got a good clip from Matt Hougan we're going to follow up this segment with, kind of explaining or answering the question we're all wondering. Why isn't the price going up? Well, I think it's just the demand, or rather the information hasn't fully seeped into the market. People fully don't understand what's going on here. A lot of people are in denial that we are in a paradigm shifting moment in the world. And all the different crises, whether, you know, it's the stuff going on in the Middle East, whether it's the economic turmoil, people are panicked right now. Or rather, you know, we talk about retail is essentially living paycheck to paycheck, you know, doing layaway on their burritos, literally financing their Uber Eats orders right now. It's like there is a lot of pain in the system right now. And of course, as we always say, the way to avoid the pain is by saving in Bitcoin. It's by becoming a Bitcoiner and taking that Bitcoin into custody. So, Luke, I kind of ranted there a little bit, but it's all pointing towards the same thing. It's going into Bitcoin eventually. Do we know the timelines? No. As the COO was saying there, it is, you know, it's going to take a while. But we are starting to see the train move. And as Lynn Alden's been saying, nothing stops this train. You know, it's more of a locomotive than it is a bullet train. So, you know, patience, guys.
Yeah, we'll put the suit coiners on the locomotive and the Bitcoiners need to get on the bullet train. The suit coiners, they're coming. I've never heard that one before. But again, I think that's the signal here. Like Bitcoin's got the biggest total addressable market of any technological innovation we've ever seen before in human history. Like again, a lot of people thought the light bulb was big, but its TAM was like what, 5%, 10% of the global economy? A lot of people thought that Henry Ford's automobile was a massive revolutionary invention, and it was, but it was only disrupting the automobile industry. Bitcoin is disrupting goddamn everything. I mean, think about that for a minute. Money is literally one half of every transaction. And BlackRock is openly saying the quiet parts out loud now. There's a $1,000 trillion market, $1 quadrillion. That's how big the total capital markets are all around the world. And Bitcoin is coming for that. I think, Opti, you mentioned a really interesting paper earlier as well. And I wanted to just kind of double click on that one. Because again, let's not forget what BlackRock wrote in 2022. That portfolio recommendation, that was actually for their private clients. I believe their private clients got their hands on that first before it was made public. And they openly said, look, over a decade time horizon between the year 2011 and 2021, the optimal portfolio allocation was 84.9% Bitcoin and then 15% stocks and bonds. Think about that for a minute. The entire world has operated under this premise or this thinking that 60-40 is the optimal portfolio allocation. 60% of my money in bonds, 40% in the more risky stuff, equities. And, you know, this is the optimal portfolio allocation. BlackRock just flipped that on its head with that 2022 paper and said, look, that's the trash. Stocks and bonds, only put 15% of your money in that. The optimal allocation over the past decade was 85% Bitcoin. Again, just think about that for a minute. I think CS in the chat is saying shaking out the lettuce hands. That's exactly what we're seeing right now. I popped a little, Opti and I were discussing the chart of Bitcoin before we got on this live stream. And we're just like, dude, where is the crash that everybody's talking about? Is it in that little tiny purple box in the top right-hand corner of the chart? Opti, where is it? I don't know. I don't see it. I don't feel it. I'm pretty numb to the price movements of Bitcoin these days. Like I'm just waiting for Bitcoin to repeat what it did in 2017 when I first kind of felt some tinglings in my nether regions. Again, I found Bitcoin in 2017, and when I got into the space, it ripped from $1,000 to $20,000 in 9 months. Let me tell you, that was a rally. And since then, I don't think we've seen a bull run. So all of these short-term price movements, they're just kind of like noise. Like I don't feel it. I don't feel it. What about you, Opti? You freaking out right now? You lettuce handing like Dave Portnoy dropping his Bitcoin like this?
No, bro. Again, the metric that I just saw this morning, I forget the exact number of days, but Bitcoin has been above 100K for 38 days, I believe. That's the longest time it's been above 100K. And there were headlines. I joke, actually, me and Nico always joke with Luke about his alt account over at Forbes is doing a really good job of trying to create the FOMO for Forbes digital assets. And he did this article this morning, and it was something about Bitcoin price crash or something like that. And he was saying something on the lines of, oh, Bitcoin had a violent crash to 100K. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this was not a violent crash. It was what, like a 2-3% move here? Like, Bitcoiners don't get out of bed for a 2-3% move here. Like, we've gone through 80% decline. Do you think a 2-3% above 100K is really affecting Bitcoiners, people that understand we're in a monetary paradigm shift moment, like, or as Croesus likes to say, a once in a lifetime moment around money? Like, we're still at above 100K. I know if you look at the short-term price movements, it is very easy to get bored. Like, I'll be honest with you, I kind of got bored with 100K like one day after we broke it. You know, we were sitting in our chat for the Simply Bitcoin Slack, and we're sitting there like, you know, I'm hanging out the Zoomers, and we're just like, yeah, bro, we did it. And then we all, well, rather, maybe not the Zoomers, but like Nico, myself, and like probably Luke, we were sitting there. It's like, well, we were promised 100K in 2021, and it's 2024. And of course, we knew we were going to get there. But now we're like, when are we going to 1 million? You know, we were literally that meme. And I was talking to my buddy Sal. You guys know, Simply Bitcoin, the unofficial official trainer. And he was like, we were literally that meme where you're like staring at the computer and it's like 99K. It gets to 100K and you're like, woo. And then it gets to 101K and you're still back. Like, okay. I think it's very easy to zoom in on the short-term price predictions. And of course, like a 2-3% move in S&P 500 in traditional stonks, that's a good thing. You know, that's all they look for. 2, 3, 5% moves in gold. The boomers are ecstatic. Us Bitcoiners were like, dude, 2%, like, this is boring. Everyone is wondering, are we going to get parabolic runs anymore? I think it's happening. I'm still fundamentally a bulltard, and I think they are happening. I think we are going to see again, you know, not to do the speculation of what this cycle is going to hold out, but I'm starting to feel like we're going to get a 2017-ish blow off top in the end of this year, November, December. I think it's lining up perfectly. I think these cycles are getting stretched out a little bit as more capital comes in. Actually, Luke, will you pull this? Wait, you might have to refresh or exit this. Yeah, just refresh this real quick.
Yeah, we're going to take a peek. What year do you want to look at?
Just, I want the whole thing. Just put it in log again.
On log.
Yeah. So yesterday, if you watch yesterday's show on the cycles, we were kind of talking about the Sailor cycle, and you know, just looking at this morning, it is starting to look like that. Like, look at after 2023, as we were saying, the super cycle is here. The structure looks fundamentally different from 2023, the back half of this chart, than it did in the first part of this chart. Now, I don't believe the cycles are over. I think we will see a parabolic run, but you can see it's doing that stepwise function that we're all kind of thinking will potentially happen. And as Luke was saying, it does feel like we haven't had a bull run. We haven't had a bull run since 2021, and that was a disappointing one. So we're due, bro. We're due for an epic run here. But again, don't over leverage yourself. Be humble, stack stats, stay solvent, all those good things. But I am starting to get more bullish, Luke. I'm starting to get even more bullish. Every day that it doesn't pump is just telling me it's going to pump even harder.
Yeah, well, I mean, to the earlier point that you made, you know, a lot of people, they're speculating, is this cycle different? I know we got some data we want to cover in the back half of this show to actually prove that, yes, it is fundamentally different. But before we get there, just on the Sailor cycle thesis, I think it's really interesting. I don't believe in any of these models. I think it's crazy that people can look at 3 data points on a chart and claim that they've found the secrets to the universe and the math and the science of Bitcoin is all a power law. because we have had 3 data points of Bitcoin crashing 80% and moving in these waves. I just don't buy that. I just don't buy that. So I love the idea of a Saylor cycle. I think it's far more rooted in reality than something like the power opinion or a stock to flow chart, for example. I think, again, models are great tools to bring people into the Bitcoin space, but I think they're not phrased and explained with the caveats that I think they need. Like, the reason why Bitcoin trends up and to the right forever is because it's absolutely scarce. And again, a lot of these models, they don't come with a caveat of, hey, we don't know where the price of Bitcoin is going to go, but it is going to trend in this up and to the right direction for the foreseeable future because of its underlying fundamentals. It's got 21 million Bitcoin. Again, I don't know why I don't hear this narrative talked about so much in the power opinion space. I think it's because they fundamentally ignore supply and demand. Again, my biggest gripe with the power law is that pre-2020, from 2008 to 2020, we were in a fundamentally different environment for Bitcoin. 90% of the coins, the total Bitcoin, was mined in that 12-year period. So we saw about 17 to 18 million coins mined before 2020. And all that happened was Bitcoin was put onto the exchanges. So if you have a look at the number of Bitcoin on exchanges pre-2020, it only grew for 12 years. It peaked at about 3.1 million in early 2020. And pre-2020, we had no billionaires, public corporations, private corporations, pension funds, or nation states buying Bitcoin. And I think post-2020, we're in a completely different realm. Not only is a lot less Bitcoin being mined, 164,000 a year, but we're seeing coins on exchange leave. They've been persistently leaving the exchanges for 5 years now. And we've also seen OTC desks. They just got drained by, 80% over the past 3 years. And we now have demand coming from the billionaires. So my biggest gripe with this cycle discussion is that 12 years of data pre-2020, we're not in that world anymore. We are in a completely fundamentally different regime for Bitcoin. It is no longer retail plebs just moving the price of Bitcoin and very predictably creating these big parabolas that always happen. Because again, retail is retail. They don't think about when to buy Bitcoin. They don't just hit the big smash buy green button. Like Michael Saylor's doing things differently to what these guys are doing when they buy Bitcoin on exchange. So yeah, I just think we're going to see I'm not ruling out the fact that we top at $200,000 and just by coincidence, we have another 80% correction. I'm not saying that's impossible. What I'm saying is I don't know what's going to happen. But when I see everybody on one side of the boat saying, I know exactly what's going to happen, it's following a power law. That's when I think, hang on a minute, markets, traditional markets, not just Bitcoin, but all markets, they always punish the consensus view. And the consensus view is, we're seeing diminishing returns, bro. Bitcoin's just going to top at like 150 to 200,000. It's going to hit the top standard deviation band on a power law just because I made it up, and it's going to crash 70% again. And then you're going to be able to multiply your Bitcoins by buying back at 80,000. It's too easy. I just don't think it's too easy. We saw the same thing happen with stock to flow in 2021. Again, I got crucified in 2021 for saying this model is going to break. It was the most unpopular opinion in Bitcoin, saying the stock to flow is BS. And again, I got crucified for months, if not years, for having that opinion. And it eventually broke. And I think a lot of people lost a lot of money because they were expecting Bitcoin to hit 288,000 because a magical model predicted it. All right. Again, I think the fundamentals are what's more important. And that's what we continue to hit on here at Simply Bitcoin. We show you guys the news and the underlying fundamentals that I think day after day brings us data to suggest that things are becoming more and more unlike previous cycles every single day. What do you think, Opti? Are you bullish on the Saylor cycle?
I'm starting to be more bullish on the Saylor side. I'm like Mulder from X-Files. I really want to believe. I want to believe. I really want to believe this is going to happen. Will it be this cycle or 4 years from now? I don't know. But at a certain point, it will break. And as we've all been saying, we will see at some point or I personally believe, this isn't a statement of fact here, this is an opinion, but I do believe we will see the S-curve adoption play out. And as we covered yesterday, and as Adam Back's been tweeting, and some OGs have been tweeting, the S-curve is very steep. And I don't think we've seen the total adoption of Bitcoin yet. I forget what the number is, but from the metrics I remember, they're saying around 3%, 3 to 5% of the global population is in Bitcoin or has Bitcoin exposure or even shitcoin exposure. And I would argue that even a smaller percentage of those people actually understand what is going on here. So I don't think we're at full capacity here. I think it's just starting. And, we're going to have to hodl our asses off here. Like, it's going to get harder because it's going to get crazier. As things start to blow up, as there's more uncertainty in the world, this Bitcoin is going to be a vacuum and suck up so much liquidity, so much capital that I'm with Luke. The old cycles are going to look like kids play to what's coming. I'm just fully convinced of this. Do I know when? No, of course not. But even when we talk about these predictions, a lot of people like to use models. Like, I remember using the Plan B model in 2018, 2020, and like, we're going forever. And then basically trying to sell Bitcoin at the top to my friends. So, all models are broken, but like, they do help us kind of understand what's going on, help us build our conviction. Maybe kind of low-key wreck your friends for like a month or two, but like, as long as they held, they would be good. And my friends that did held are happy they held. So, I think it's all part of the marketing around Bitcoin. But I'm starting to get bullish. One day, Luke, we will see this. All we know is it's going up forever, up and to the right. A quadrillion worth of world capital has to get into 21 million coins, or even less, 15, 16, depending on estimation. So I don't know about you guys, but it seems like Bitcoin is going to the moon at some point. So you better strap in. It's going to get crazy. It's simply divided. What's going on here? All right. Anyways, guys, or Luke, jump in and then let's keep it moving, because you did mention the reasons for why we think this time might be different, and I have the perfect clip to play there.
Yeah, just quickly, all I'll say on that point, Opti, is, as we're going to talk about later, is we've got $2 quadrillion of value that wants to flow into 21 million coins. But as we're going to have a look at, I don't think all 21 million Bitcoin are going to be available for sale in the future. And there's actually going to be a lot less Bitcoin available for sale than most people could, I think, ever imagine. But I'll save that for a minute.
Yeah, I think you kind of laid it out last time you were on this show. So, but yeah, we'll talk about that towards the wrap up of the show, because there has been a whole new breed of FUD around Bitcoin treasuries. And hey, we're kind of been a part of it. We're like, it seems like the new shitcoin cycle, but the legacy media is starting to catch on to it. Anyways, before I move on, I do want to remind you to smash the like button. It really helps us in the algos. And of course, if this is your first time here, hit the subscriber button. We go live Monday through Friday, 12:15 every single day, covering the Bitcoin news. And of course, big shout out to our boys over at the Bitcoin Well. Go sign up to bitcoinwell.com/simply and use the promo code simply to get wrong one. Use the promo code SimplyBTC to get 3 tosses into the wishing well, where you have a chance to win 1 million sats. And the reason we love these guys the most is because they never hold on to your Bitcoin. They have never lost a sat. They literally never hold that Bitcoin for you. Once your cash clears, they send it to you directly. This incentivizes what we believe is the best way to acquire Bitcoin, is you taking it into self-custody. Enable your independence and buy real Bitcoin at bitcoinwell.com. On that note, guys, let's get into some more bullish explanations of why we haven't seen the price start ripping yet.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on StampSeed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
Alrighty then. Wow, Luke, that was cinematic right there. Okay, we're over here on Clark Moody's dashboard, of course, going over the Bitcoin numbers, and the current Bitcoin price is 103,620. Guys, it's absolutely over. We are a decline from all-time high at -7.5%. It's over. Wrap it up. We had a good run. It's going to zero. No, I'm trolling, obviously. And the sats per dollar, aka how much Bitcoin you can buy for a single dollar. Again, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You don't have to spend $103,000 to get Bitcoin. You can literally get 965 sats per dollar. But of course, you know, buy as much Bitcoin as you can. If you do have 103K liquid right now in cash, I would say buy the Bitcoin. This is the best move you can make. And of course, the block height, which might be the most important number here. It is TikTok next block, Bitcoin working exactly as designed. We are currently at 901,651, and the market cap in fiat terms, we have reclaimed the $2 trillion market cap, 2.06 trillion. And, you know, I'm just going to wrap it up with the total percentage issued ever. As we just said, there's probably millions of Bitcoin lost, and we have currently have issued 94.66%, or rather the Bitcoin network has released about 94.66% of all the Bitcoin that would ever be created. Now, as I was telling you, you know, this time does feel different. We don't know yet, but everyone's wondering the same thing. Hey, Opti. Hey, Nico. Hey, Luke. You guys are covering all this bullish news. Why isn't the Bitcoin price ripping? And what's the price going to do by the end of this year? Well, Matt Hougan from Bitwise, I think, perfectly explains what is going on here. So let's check this out.
Yeah, our prediction is that Bitcoin's going to get over $200,000 by the end of the year. What's happening right now is you have a huge amount of good news in Bitcoin. You have a U.S. strategic reserve where the government now owns Bitcoin. You have improvements on the regulatory front. You have institutional adoption. You may be wondering, why aren't prices higher? The reason is we've had a bunch of economic uncertainty that's caused not just Bitcoin, but all risky assets to fall. Stocks are down substantially. So the market has dipped, but I think over time, as that economic volatility subsides, you're going to see all that good news catch up to Bitcoin, and it's going to propel it to new all-time highs and indeed above $200,000 for the year.
What do we have to see? Like, is there a sign that we have to see for all that to happen?
Yeah, there are two things to keep your eye on. So one, Bitcoin's price is set by supply and demand, and we all know the supply, right? There'll only be 21 million. We only make 165,000 new ones a year. So you have to watch the demand. The three things to watch are ETFs gaining inflows, are corporations like MicroStrategy and MetaPlanet continuing to buy Bitcoin, and our government's buying Bitcoin. If those three things happen, I think the $200,000 target is a lock. So I would keep your eye on that. It would help if the economy improves, if we don't enter a recession, that would help. But it's really about, does the demand materialize in the way I think it will? Every sign that I see suggests that ETFs are buying, corporations are buying, and governments are buying. That's why I'm so bullish, but they have to keep buying in order for us to get to that $200,000 target.
You said they keep on buying. At what scale are we talking?
Yeah, so last year ETFs bought 500,000 Bitcoin. Again, remember, the Bitcoin network only produced 165,000 Bitcoin. So it bought 3 times the total supply. Corporations bought 250,000 Bitcoin. Governments, I think this year could buy a couple 100,000 Bitcoin. So I think if you look at those 3 sources, I think they'll buy more than 1 million Bitcoin this year. And where is it going to come from? The only place it can come from is people who already hold Bitcoin The only way they will sell is if the price goes up. That's why I'm so bullish on the market.
Now, that last point, I think it's lost on a lot of people. As we've been telling you, the majority of coin is being held by individuals or even institutions or the Michael Saylors of the world. And there's only one way to incentivize us to sell that Bitcoin, or rather, you know, secure some of our purchasing power, if you don't like that phrasing. And that's for the price to go up. Now, he did mention a couple of metrics to watch, and so I want to bring those up so we can kind of fact check this in real time and show you what we're seeing. Of course, he talked about the ETF inflows. Now, I'm over here on coinglass.com/Bitcoin-ETF. You guys can follow along at home, or rather maybe bookmark this and follow along moving forward. It'll tell you the daily inflows to ETFs, again, by the day with every ETF. And you can see there's been some red days here. But as you can see on the bottom, total Bitcoin spot ETF net inflow, as he said, as long as this number continues to increase, he will be bullish on the price because, of course, that's the institutional retail capital appetite for this new asset, emerging asset, of course, Bitcoin. And you can see the heat map. If I wouldn't suggest you buy the ETFs, but if you want to buy one of them, you can follow along at home. They'll also show you the outflow. So there have been some red days here. Obviously, there's been a lot of turmoil. If you've had your head in the sand the last couple of weeks, there's kind of a lot of crazy stuff going on right now. Bond markets are blowing up, even increased tensions in the Middle East. We're seeing all kinds of crazy stuff right now, domestically in the U.S. and, of course, internationally. We are in kind of a boiling point right now, and we don't know what will break, but hopefully the break is to the upside, and that's the Bitcoin price ripping. Now, this is Luke's favorite site here. The other thing he mentioned was the fact that if you see corporate Bitcoin treasuries acquiring more Bitcoin, then that is bullish. Now, you can see all time here on bitcointreasuries.net. It is increasing. It has been increasing. It is going up. Of course, they own roughly 3.44 million coins by the day, and we'll cover this towards the end of the show. By the day, we're seeing new Bitcoin treasury companies emerge. It's seeming like everyone is trying to play Hungry Hippo soon. So those metrics, as he said, are increasing. And I've been saying for a little bit, it does feel like my Oracle prediction of 200K. I'm starting to be more convinced of it by the day. Now, the one thing he did say was nation states buying. We haven't really heard any news there. We still don't know if the US or China holds all the coin they claim. You know, where are the audits, bro? What's going on here? But when that does happen, again, we do have to do a little hat tip to Trump to essentially announce that they wanted to acquire Bitcoin, setting the game theory off. Now, once someone starts to aggressively stack besides El Salvador and Bhutan, this is when things get crazy. This is when you start to see the hard limit of Bitcoin, 21 million, start to sink in. Because, again, it's everything divided by 21 million. It's got to explode. Now, I'm with Matt here. You know, it's just the asymmetric information out there, especially stark contrast to what's going on in the economy and all the crises going on. There is a lot of uncertainty, but once people start to realize there's no reason to panic, or rather maybe panic first and get into Bitcoin very quickly, this stuff has to start ripping like never before. It's going to rip. Anyways, yeah, someone say, AKA 4turning vibes. Yeah, I fully endorse this. Luke, what's your thoughts on this clip?
Yeah, I think fourth turn in, that's a great comment by Thomas in the chat. This is just another reason why I think trying to model the price of Bitcoin moving forward in the next decade is going to become more and more unpredictable. Because again, Bitcoin kind of evolved in what I think is kind of like the quiet era of the fourth turn in. So again, I think the authors of the book make the case we entered it in 2008. And again, this is like a 22-year chapter. So if we are living in a fourth turn-in, we'd be looking at 2008 to 2030. But it's at the very end of the fourth turn-in that gets most volatile. Again, we're in 2025, 5 more years to the end of the fourth turn-in, when we're supposed to see a complete rip down of the old system and new institutions being built. So again, I think things are going to get more interesting. Things are going to get more volatile. I love how bullish Matt Hougan is getting from Bitwise there, essentially saying $200,000. It's a lock. You can lock it in, baby. That's nice. I think most people take that to the bank, and I typically agree with him. Again, we don't make short-term price predictions here on the show, and I never do because I'm always wrong. But I do think like $200,000, it's pretty conservative for the next year, 12-month kind of outlook, especially when you consider all of the bullish developments and all of the accumulation that's going on right now. Because I think Opti right now, I think we're seeing something that I've never seen before in a bull cycle, and that is how rapidly this accumulation is just increasing day after day.
Yeah, I mean, the craziest part, or the craziest number, and I think you might have been the first one to kind of mention this to me, and then Saylor, again, went on the Bitcoin 2025 conference, and actually every appearance since has been saying the same thing. There's only 450 Bitcoin released into the world a day. Roughly, I think, what, $45 to $50 million a day. As Matt Hougan was saying, the ETFs bought essentially 3 years of the total Bitcoin supply, and it only kind of hit 70, 100K. Like, the math isn't mathing with all of these supposed $1 billion of liquidity coming into Bitcoin, of course, in fiat terms. It doesn't make sense unless there's just an insane number of paper Bitcoin sales out there. Like, if they're not actually buying Bitcoin, then we could be in a worse position than we saw from FTX. But from what I've been seeing in the data and Checkmatey and others on Twitter, they are actually acquiring that Bitcoin. Now, of course, there's some rotation here that is just, financial trickery that's probably kind of keeping the price in a, for lack of better terms, like a suppressed channel here. But at a certain point, that does break. Who's going to be the buyer that basically breaks the camel's back here? What's going to be that one defining moment to rip it this bull market? We don't really know. But as Luke's kind of been saying, though, I did do a report with Gemini, and they're saying, all the Bitcoin exchange losing Bitcoin is really kind of like it's getting filtered into the ETFs. It's kind of just getting circled. But there will be a point where the supply-demand economics play out and the price has to give, and that's to the upside. I think we are starting to get to the point where we are exhausting all of the sellers out there. We are seeing that the price it's holding really strong above 100K. Again, a great metric. This is the longest time it's been above 100K. We forget how these cycles play out because it's been so long. When it wicked to 20K, it was there for I forget, 4 hours or something. The first time we broke 70K, it wicked there for about a day. The first time we broke 100K, it kind of wicked there for a little bit. Then it retraced. And now we are holding a solid support at 100K. It's hard not to feel bullish. It's hard to understand how the price isn't ripping as well. So, I do like how Matt Hougan's getting more and more bullish. I think everyone is getting more and more bullish. The longer, I said it earlier today, the longer the price stays at these levels, the harder it has to rip. I can't see it any other way. I just jinxed it. Rip. Actually, it's dumping. It's going down. We're going to get cheap sats on discount. It's not going up. Man.
It has to go up eventually. And this is where the math will be forced to math, as you said there, Opti. I think the price will finally reflect the underlying demand when there's no Bitcoin left on exchanges. I think until then, we're going to continue to see paper games. We're going to continue to see the OTC desks drained of Bitcoin. I think this is something that maybe doesn't get talked about enough. Like, the entities who have been quietly accumulating Bitcoin since 2020, they're not just going on Coinbase and smash buying $1 billion buy. They're buying it very methodically. They're buying it very carefully. They're, as Michael Saylor described when he first talked about how he initially bought thousands of Bitcoin for MicroStrategy back in 2020, he's placing hundreds, if not thousands of buys every day using this automated software that slowly but surely is buying Bitcoin minute by minute by minute, not triggering the price to aggressively gap up in any way, shape, or form. So what we're seeing is price not react in a violent manner to the supply suffocation that we've seen, but all we have seen is the OTC desks decrease by 80%, and 35% of the Bitcoin on exchanges has decreased by 2020. And I think, again, for the next 2 years, maybe it's 3 years, who knows? But I think there's a good case to be made that we're not going to see any really violent rips or moves in Bitcoin until that supply on the exchanges is drained and it's at zero. Now, I'm not saying we can't rally to $300, $400, $500,000 while we still have Bitcoin on the exchanges. I think we can. That's like my base case for probably the next 12 to 24 months. We rip into the 3, 4, 500,000. But I just think the real big move happens once there's no Bitcoin on exchanges. And when I say real big move, I'm not talking about $100,000 rallies or $100,000 candles. I'm talking about $1 million candles. That's when the real fun actually begins. And I think that's the move that most people expect to be happening right now with the amount of adoption we're seeing around the world. I think I'm shocked we're still at $100,000. I think it's purely because of the methodical nature and the methodical methods that these big guys use to buy their Bitcoin. That's why we're not seeing price just rip overnight.
Yeah, 100%. I totally would agree with that. I really want to believe the what do we call them? Godzilla, Omega, God candles. I forget what they're called now, but one day it will be true. And I think Hodl said it the best. He's like, when I first got into Bitcoin, I think he said it was like $600 or $200 or something. And then later on, the Bitcoin price would move $200 and I wouldn't be phased. If you got in Bitcoin at 1K, it was huge. And then Bitcoin price moves in 1K, variations a day, and you don't really care. You get in at 10K, it's huge moment. Like Bitcoin kind of trends a little bit. I remember it hit 10K for the first day, it dropped to 9K. And we're like, oh my God, it's over. And now Bitcoin, did its couple 10K fluctuations here. Well, extend that down the line. We did hit 100K. There will be a day when Bitcoin fluctuates 100K a day, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Bitcoin is, again, just the global vacuum for capital right now. It's the black hole. And this is the opportunity for you to stack. This is why we're here. This is why we are still kind of called idiots. I was actually going to put on the numbers, guys. There was a clip from like 2023, I think, when Bitcoin crashed 6.5. It was like on Netflix. And the guy was like making fun of us and like, oh, Bitcoiners are dumb. Well, it's like, how about them apples? Do you like these apples? We're at 100K, 106K. And who's laughing now? Like, this is just the part of being a Bitcoiner. We are idiots for 3 years, and then we got about like 3 months where we're geniuses out of a 4-year cycle. Well, it'll be very obvious that Bitcoiners are correct, that Bitcoin maxis were correct, and that everyone needed to stack Bitcoin. So that's coming. Your vindication will come. Your vindication will come soon. In the meantime, keep stacking.
The biggest vindication, you just said maxis are correct. I don't know if we've showed the people or not, or brought their attention to what everybody's favorite founder and entrepreneur, Charles Hoskinson, is doing with
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, bring it up real quick. I think I can find the headline and we'll cover it real quick before we go into the news.
Let's break it down. So essentially, Cardano, again, proof of stake altcoin. Again, for years, Charles Hoskinson has been bashing on Bitcoin. He's been saying we don't need Bitcoin. And then all of a sudden, recently, I believe he was at a conference and he was talking about putting $100 million into Bitcoin and stable coins. This is potentially one of the biggest backflips that I've seen in the Bitcoin space. And this just goes to what we continue to say. Altcoiners love Bitcoin. They just love your Bitcoin. They're trying to get you to buy their shitcoin that they print out of thin air, and then they're just going to swap it into Bitcoin. So I thought that was pretty crazy. That popped out this week, and I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw it. But
yeah. Here's just a quick Google. Cardano eyes Bitcoin for its $1.2 billion treasury. Charles Hoskin floats the idea of $100 million BTC bet. Essentially, here we go. He's proposed converting $100 million worth of ADA into Bitcoin. And it's native stablecoin, whatever. The TLDR is essentially what Luke said. Shitcoiners love Bitcoin. They just love your Bitcoin. And look, as someone that came in 2017 when we were essentially in the trenches on Twitter and you would earn your stripes battling the shitcoiners, This is what we said forever, that the even the shitcoiners out there that try to sell you the utopia, the dreams here, the 100 X's, even they understand that the whole ecosystem is built on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the only thing that matters. If you've watched this show, if you're new to the show, if you're quote unquote crypto friendly, crypto native, or whatever the newest term is, the only thing that matters is Bitcoin. And now your favorite, I don't know, quote, favorite shitcoin creator is essentially saying, hey, we're going to use Bitcoin to secure our holdings, and we're going to do the Bitcoin treasury thing with our shitcoin, and that's going to boost our holdings. It's like, yeah, why would you buy that thing? Why wouldn't you just buy Bitcoin? We've been saying that for a minute. Actually, we're going to touch on that a little later, but let's jump into the news. I do want to cover something very quickly, and then I really want to give Luke a lot of room to just rip it and get you guys even more bullish. So we're going to get into the news real quick, and then we will talk with Luke.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Cold Card. If you're serious about self-custody, Cold Card is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet. There is no second best. The Cold Card Q is the ultimate air-gapped Bitcoin signing device, complete with a full keyboard, large screen, camera, NFC support, and much more. Do you prefer something sleeker? The MK4 is trusted by hardcore Bitcoiners around the world. Both are built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, secure and open source. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 5% off with promo code SIMPLY. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today with Cold Card.
All right, guys. I think this news is huge. As we've been saying on this show, and usually it's in regards to the strategic Bitcoin reserve, but the global nation-state game theory plays out very quickly around the world. And as we've seen in the past, regulations around Bitcoin, the laws around Bitcoin, the bans around Bitcoin have all changed. They're in different jurisdictions. But ever since Trump came out, we are starting to see that everyone is trying to one-up each other. And now this is the type of Bitcoin regulation legislation that I want to see more of, and I really hope the U.S. follows soon. This would be the ultimate win. So what am I talking about? Of course, I'm talking about this. Thailand approves 5-year crypto tax exemption. Thailand's crypto income tax waiver applies to crypto sales made through licensed crypto asset service providers from 2025 to late 2029. Now, of course, I want to see this forever, for the rest of time. But hey, we'll take a 5-year exemption on your taxes in regards to capital gains. So Thailand has approved tax exemptions on income from the sale of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin for 5 years, according to a Ministry of Finance announcement. Thailand will waive the capital gains tax on crypto sales made through licensed crypto asset services providers in the period from January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2029. Deputy Finance Minister Halupan Amornavet, apologies, said in a statement issued on Tuesday. According to the minister, the measure is designed to strengthen Thailand's position as a global financial hub and one of the first countries to adopt laws for digital assets in their taxation. The tax measure also aims to promote crypto trading in Thailand under the supervision of the Thai SEC in compliance with AML policies recommended by the Financial Action Task Force. Now, of course, we don't want to facilitate more trading, but we would love to see the exemption of capital gains in the U.S. Of course, that is like the final thing I think really holding a lot of people back to using Bitcoin in commerce, accepting Bitcoin, etc. That would be the huge news. Now, this isn't the only one here. We also know, Czech Republic has done this. If you hodl your Bitcoin for 3 years, you get a capital gains tax exemption. Well, now we also saw that Brazil is introducing their bill to remove all capital gains taxes on Bitcoin. This is what I want to see more of. Again, I've said in the past, if the U.S. follows this trend here, then I am all for this administration going pro-Bitcoin. This is the type of stuff I want to see more happen, and I really hope that we do see the game theory around this start to happen everywhere. We did see some states kind of announce this in the U.S., not the states I personally want to live in, but hey, it is kind of incentivizing me to even consider this. But we finally gotten to a point where, we're not just talking about leaving the U.S. because they're going to attack us. The plan B model here in regards to your passports is starting to work out where you're like, hey, I was joking with Luke earlier. I'm like, Thailand's looking like a good place to live now. I don't know. I like tropical beach weather. Like, this is starting to play out really well. This is starting to look like the sovereign individual thesis play out in real time where governments have to compete for you as a citizen. I love this. I think this is huge news. I want to see more countries follow this trend, not just acquiring, Bitcoin and essentially using fancy legislations to legally permit them to steal your Bitcoin, work for the Bitcoin like everyone else. So I love this. Shouts out to Thailand. I think this is a great move. So Luke, very quickly, look, you are a nomad. So, when Luke coming from Thailand?
Yeah, I thought you were actually going to say Thailand has those really beautiful.
Don't say that.
Something else for a minute there, Opti, but all I will say is that yes, traveling has its advantages. You can go and see whatever local tropical beaches that you want to see, and I would absolutely love to see Thailand do something related to Bitcoin, whether that's scrapping taxes for 5 years. That would be huge. Imagine if they started actually selling passports for Bitcoin. I would potentially put Thailand pretty high on my list of places to go to. Obviously, El Salvador created a lot of buzz and a lot of interest when they didn't just float the idea, they openly said, come buy a passport, it's $1 million big ones. I mean, I know they got a lot of people who went down there and bought that second passport for $1 million. Having a second passport, it's incredibly valuable, especially if you can not pay tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of your tax money to your corrupt bureaucratic government who is, let's just gonna say, spend your hard-earned money on things it shouldn't be spending its money on. As simple as that. Okay, so hey, if Thailand came out with a passport purchasable in Bitcoin, I reckon you'd see me down there in Thailand pretty quickly, Opti, and I reckon I would be trying to convince you to get down there to Thailand and check out the tropical beaches with me.
Yeah, that sounds great. And Luke, don't check the chat. You're getting nuked, guys. This is a family-friendly show. Chill in the chat, guys. All right. Well, look, I have to move on really quick because Luke does have to jump off, and I really want him to hit a thread he just launched yesterday, or rather maybe this morning. So I'm gonna set it up, tee you up, Luke. You rip it, and then we get out of here for the day. And go enjoy ourselves a great Tuesday. All right. So here we go for the culture.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations, that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io.
All right, guys. So I'm just going to set the stage here. I want to read a few headlines that I've kind of been alluding to on the show for the last week or so. There's been multiple ones, but this is the new trend. As we've noticed, Bitcoin treasury companies have become all the rage. It's a new narrative. It's a new hype cycle, for better or worse. This is what everyone's talking about. We see the stocks going absolutely nuclear. Well, we're seeing, some legacy media pick up on this trend. And it's very interesting, they're bent here. So we're over here on Reuters, and it goes, what are Bitcoin treasury strategies? The latest trend in the public markets. Of course, they mentioned Saylor. They try to break this down. But I just really want you guys to zoom in on the headline. Obviously, they are kind of picking on Saylor recently. And this one I saw this morning, which is interesting. The fundamental problem with MicroStrategy's Bitcoin buying plan. And the literal problem was that the Bitcoin price is going up, so they're going to buy less, which means they may not be able to issue as much debt. And, if you like Bitcoin treasury companies, maybe you should just do what the Bitcoin treasury company is doing themselves and just buy Bitcoin yourself. Though they said use spot ETFs. And, we say the same thing, like just buy Bitcoin yourself. Probably the best thing to do here. If this is what they're doing. If you don't want to take the risk of the over leveraging yourself or buying a stock of a more leveraged company, then just buy the Bitcoin yourself. But it is interesting. We are seeing these trends right now where Bitcoin treasury stonks is all the rage. The legacy media is picking it up. And then I saw this chart here from Blockware. Shouts out the Blockware team. And I think this is the reason. The number of publicly traded companies with Bitcoin on their balance sheet has increased by 135% year to date. So in 2024, there were 64. In 2023, 43, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In 2020, there was 2. And this year alone, as of 6/17, literally this morning, there's 151. And as we've been hearing and talking about, there's potentially thousands on the horizon. Things are going to get absolutely insane, which leads me to Luke's thread where he is talking about Bitcoin treasury companies. So, Luke, I already kind of know where you head with this thread on what the big idea is, but can you explain it for the audience? What is your big idea? And you actually kind of alluded to it earlier on the show, but just to rehash the idea, why is this not only catching all the hype right now, legacy media is picking up, but what is this going to mean to the Bitcoin that is currently circulating or about to be released, or, the Bitcoiners hodling their coin right now?
Well, let's not rehash an idea, Opti. Let's talk about something I haven't talked about on Simply Bitcoin before, and that is the double halving. So around 18 months ago, the beginning of 2024, we were leading into the halving, and I was looking at the supply suffocation. Again, I've been screaming about the supply suffocation for 5 years now. And what I found really interesting was if you actually look at the number of Bitcoins circulating available for sale, you could actually make a pretty strong case that we're not actually seeing typical halving cycles anymore. We're seeing something completely different because, again, what normally happens? What triggers Bitcoin bull runs every 4 years? It's the new circulating supply or the new incoming supply getting cut in half, right? So the last halving we had, we went from having something like 330,000 Bitcoin mined a year, cut down to 164,000 Bitcoin mined a year. So that halving was a deficit of 160,000 Bitcoin per year. And what's absolutely fascinating is that over the past 6 months alone, we've seen 500,000 Bitcoin ripped from the exchanges. So again, I don't think these normal halving cycles are the same. I don't even think that my original article that I wrote about the double halving in 2024 is accurate, because I think we are now seeing a quadruple halving this year. And this is, again, why I'm just really fascinated by the growing acceleration in these public treasury companies. Now, the image that I started off with at the beginning of this thread, it was showing that over the past 30 days, we've seen 28 new treasury companies enter the Bitcoin space. And I wanted to actually have a little bit of a look. I said, okay, there's 130, 150 public corporations. What does that actually mean for the price of Bitcoin? How much Bitcoin do they own? So we can see that nearly we're seeing a new Bitcoin company created every single day. This is how rapidly this trend is accelerating, which was showed really nicely by that chart that you showed, Opti, of Blockware, okay? So we're seeing a new treasury company added a day. What does that mean? Well, on average, I crunched the numbers and I found that each treasury company on average holds 6,000 Bitcoin. And I calculated the maths and I said, okay, well, what happens if we see another 27 new treasury companies enter the Bitcoin space every month for the next 12 months? I don't think that's super crazy. I mean, where price is trending higher, it doesn't look like we're going to be hitting a recession soon. Macro looks somewhat steady, despite the fact there's shenanigans happening in the Middle East. Again, I just think all of these things will be, let's say, catalysts. I think excuse is maybe a word that could get me into trouble. Let's just say all of these things will be good excuses to print more money. So again, I don't think it's a crazy assumption to say what happens if a new 27 treasury companies are added every single month for the next 12 months. What if they want to aspire to accumulate the average Bitcoin treasury size, which is about 6,300 Bitcoin? Well, this would show that new entrants into the public treasury space would accumulate 2.3 million Bitcoin over the next 12 months. We all know that there's somewhere between 2.1, 2.4 million Bitcoin on exchanges. So just if new public companies keep entering the space in the same way they did over the past month's worth of data, again, it's not like a week's worth of data, it's not completely insignificant, caveats applied, it's a month's worth of data, but if this trend continues just at the same rate, there's no Bitcoin on exchanges in literally 350 days. And again, this is completely ignoring the existing 150 public companies. We're assuming that they also don't buy 600,000 Bitcoin like they did over the past 12 months. So again, I just think we're really being set up here for what I think is going to be a supply shock of the century. And I think it's going to be absolutely mind-boggling to see what happens. And I just think so many people, every day we just see, oh, there's a new company raising $1 billion to buy Bitcoin. I just think we're getting lulled to sleep. And Bitcoin is just becoming normalized with the idea of new public companies doesn't move the price. And it's insignificant. And I just think what's happening is the beach ball is just getting pushed under the water. And eventually that thing is going to spring out of the water and hit some chaps on the noses. Okay, so I think we're in for what I think is the perfect storm. And I think the real Bitcoin super cycle is just kind of loading.
He said super cycle. Uh-oh.
It's coming back.
Well, everyone loves when Luke comes on. You're actually getting trolled in the chat a little bit. It's like Luke's making up theories again here. But the first time you told me the, what you call it, double halving cycle or double halving, I was like, what are you even talking about? Like, what are you saying here, Luke? But it does make a lot of sense. Obviously, the halvings every 4 years. Now, with all the supposed, and I'm going to use quotes here, supposed Bitcoin buys from these corporate treasury Bitcoin plays, they're literally pretty much having the supply, if not buying years worth of supply here. At a certain point, something has to give. We also heard this week, Metaplanet got to 10,000 coins, surpassing Coinbase. And now they themselves want to get up to 200,000 coins. That's just one entity. Now, we kind of forget just how competitive these people are, these companies are. And actually, there was, we brought it up on the show before, Saylor was even kind of alluding to this in one of his recent clips. Actually, it was the one with Jordan Peterson. He's like, I saw what Elon Musk was doing. I saw what Zuck was doing, and it pissed him off. And he was like, I need to do more. I need to figure out something. I need to find my edge. And of course, his edge was acquiring Bitcoin. Well, once those billionaires start figuring out what Saylor's done, or rather, fully grok what he's doing and actually see the potential for what Bitcoin does, then they're going to compete with Saylor to try to catch up to Saylor. Everyone is competing for the coin right now. You should be competing with everyone in the chat. Like, I want to outstack you. And actually, it kind of reminds me of games we used to play in 2018. Shouts out to the legend American Hono. He kind of kicked this off. He was the first one to kind of gamify it. But we used to always kind of play games of, I'm going to outstack you this cycle. Can I, I'm working more shifts, working more jobs. I'm sacrificing more to acquire more Bitcoin. Like, once that fundamental paradigm shift happens, it's literally game over here. And these corporate Bitcoin treasuries, I think, are right in the midst of this. And again, if you don't know, now you know. Like, the price is going to go up. But hey, we're not just here for, we're really here for the tech, bro. We're here for the tech. I'm here for the tech.
The tech and the
freedom go up. NGU is cool, but freedom go up in the tech. I'm here for the tech, bro.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all? Yeah, I just think it's inevitable, man. I think what we're seeing is just a continuation of the trend, and if that continues, like 2030 is, I think, going to melt some faces. I don't think people are prepared for what we're going to see in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I love it. Actually, Satwise Jenks in the chat, this is a great comment. So he goes, Bitcoin is math. That's why it's winning, and that's why mathematical-based analysis is the most accurate when predicting Bitcoin. For example, this is the first bull run with scarcity at 95% already mined. Again, hold on. Bars by Satwise. Guys, this is fundamentally a different cycle. We still have yet to see how it plays out. But if you're stacking Bitcoin, if you continue to stack Bitcoin, if you continue to take it into custody, you're going to be fine. You're going to be perfectly fine moving forward. Don't take your foot off the gas. Continue to come to the show. We'll keep you updated on the news. We'll bring Luke on, as much as possible to just keep you even more bull-tarded as possible. Make sure we get your dopamine going with some crazy predictions here. But based on the math, the simple math here. Again, it's going up forever, guys. Well, this is today's show. I know Luke has to run, so I'm sure we could kind of break this topic down longer. But Luke, if you got to pop off, and I will sign off the show. So appreciate it, dude, and I'll talk to you later.
See you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for putting up with my bad haircut and dodgy economic rants.
And the accent. All right, guys. It's your boy Opti. Like I said to start off the show, if you like this show, smash the like button. Comment on this video. Are we just ridiculous, bull-tarded? Is our math lining up? And of course, if you want to see us, we go live Monday through Friday, 12:15 p.m. Hit the subscribe button because we are dropping all kinds of content from Dante and Rustin. We are doing the best interviews. We got the best content. Shouts out to Ocean. He created a new show. We even got shorts for your Zoomers. We have the best media in the game right now. We love you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.